Okay, let's chat COVID as if we're not tired of hearing that word yet. It is definitely a thorn in our side. It is, as you know, it kind of hit us a little bit harder this week. We have been so fortunate and blessed to have really not much impact on our school days and weeks. We've had a few kids here and there quarantining, as you've seen from the dashboard, but this week it kind of really hit us hard. And I anticipated it was going to be coming very soon with our health department meetings. I will talk about that in a little bit, but knew it was on the horizon and it did come. So it came with a vengeance. And I am happy to report that we have been dealing with it very well. Our staff is amazing at pivoting and just sort of going with the flow, and it is what it is. We're going to make it work, and everyone's been adjusting really well. I want to start this conversation by just kind of reviewing some of the things that I've talked about previously, and I'm not one to be a broken record, but what we're finding is that when a family finds themselves in a COVID possible situation, they're unsure of what to do, and it's not for lack of listening to these lovely chats or reading the Thursday folder. I really think it's a case where you're like, oh my goodness, now what did you say about that? What did I read about that? When you find yourself in those situations, it's really kind of hard to navigate because your mind is on your child who has symptoms and all of the implications of those. So the first thing I want to say is please print out the symptom checker that we've included in Thursday folders. It's on our Lumen Christi site. Print that out and have that on your refrigerator next to your thermometer that you're using in the morning to take your child's temperature. Have it somewhere present because that's the main piece of information you need right now. Any symptom, any first sign of a symptom. So if you have that near you, you see part one and then you see part two. In part one, all of those symptoms are just one of those, as we've talked about. So if your child has any one of those symptoms or any two, the first sign of that, you need to assume your child has COVID. And this is sort of um, they have COVID until proven otherwise. And it's tough because your child may have like a little cough and you're like, oh, it's like dry air, it's winter, it's cold. I think they might just have a cold. And they very well may have a cold. But what we're finding is that the kids who are testing positive are having very mild symptoms, if at all any symptoms, or they're having a cough for like a day or two and then it goes away, but they have COVID. So we really need that first step to be taken and to be taken really seriously. Um, we're also finding, which is the challenge, as we all know, is that this virus does not impact, or it's impacting people in many different ways. So unlike the flu, if you get the flu, you're like, oh, my sister had the flu and she said like the first 3 days are really tough. And then by the fourth day, you're going to feel better and it runs its course, right? And everyone kind of runs the same course. It's just so different. So it's why we have to really just be so aware of all those symptoms with our children. I also encourage you, if your child on a Saturday wakes up with a cough, to not do the whole, like, let's see if it passes before we address it on Monday when school starts. Again, the second that symptom is starting to show, we ask that you right away think, my child has COVID, I need to get a test. Okay. Um, just also, if they do have those symptoms, a reminder that all siblings also need to be home because again, we're thinking that child has symptoms, which means, or has is COVID, excuse me. So that means my other children need to also stay home until we find out that the symptomatic child does not have COVID. Once you get your child tested, okay, so you get them tested, you then are waiting, and when the test comes back, obviously if it's positive, then we follow the quarantining. If it's negative, your child and the siblings may return to school literally the second you get that phone call that it's negative. They can come back to school. One thing that we are seeing is that kids have a cough, they get the COVID test, it comes back negative, they come back to school, and they have a cough. they probably have the cold, like a common cold. The common cold is still around. It's still going to be around even in a COVID environment. So then they come to school and they're in the classroom and they're coughing. And children are going home and telling their parents, oh my gosh, there's this kid in the classroom that's coughing all the time. And then parents are contacting us saying, what are you doing? There's kids that are coughing. We thought coughing isn't allowed in the school. So what I ask of you is to please trust that the school and the teachers, we are on it. We are aware of all these situations. We have great organization, great notes, great systems in place that you don't see kind of behind the scenes. So we're keeping track of this. So yes, there may be a student in your child's classroom who's coughing. If they haven't been tested for COVID, they wouldn't be there because the minute they're coughing, we're removing them, isolating them, and calling mom and dad to come pick them up. So if you hear your child say, "Oh, there's Jimmy in my class is coughing," just say, "Yeah, there's the cold's probably going around." Mrs. Fife shared that the child is safe because they're going to make sure that kids are safe coming into the building. Okay. Now, if you find yourself with a child at home that's symptomatic, the first thing you think is like, what do I do? Okay. We ask that you go to our Lumen Christi school website, like I talked about in the last chat, and fill out the COVID form that we have on there. So fill that out. Step one. If you don't know what to do, please send myself or Kim Althaus, or even that Lumen Christi school email addresses. All three of those email addresses are being checked every day and outside of the school hours. So 7 days a week, we're checking emails and we're checking them until usually 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So shoot off an email to Kim Althaus, myself, or just Elsie's school. And then one of us, Kim or myself, we will get back to you. We will either email you back or give you a call, depending on what information you share with us. And then we will walk you through what the next steps are. So do not feel lost or unsure of what to do. All right, we will get back to you with those pieces. It's understandable to not know what to do. Kim and I actually at times are thinking, oh my gosh, what do we do with this case? Because they all are so different. And we're here to help you navigate that. We work closely together. Every case that comes forth to one of us, Kim and I are talking through those cases on the phone, walking through, we're checking one another to make sure that we're following the right protocols and that we have everything up to par. So know that your children are in good hands with us. I wish that I could put like a COVID barrier around our building and put everyone in this little bubble, but I can't. I do want to thank you for being diligent and keeping your children home when there are symptoms. That is really the key to keeping our school as safe as possible, as you can see from the dashboard. I do want to also share one piece of information. As I have shared numerous times, every other week there's a health department meeting, and we ironically just had one on Thursday. And the health department shared that they're tracing cases. There's a huge uptick, obviously, and these cases are being traced back primarily to social gatherings, parties in the home, parties in garages, bonfires, sports, dance, gymnastics. School is not the place where where COVID is being spread. I thought it was interesting that they shared with us, of all of the public and private schools in Washington and Ozaukee County, 5 positive cases in students have been tracked back to being spread in the school. So only 5, that's amazing. Everything else is usually either unknown or, like I said, social. So I really, really encourage you to limit those social interactions as much as possible. I do know there's a social emotional component. I'm a mom, I'm well aware of that. But please, please, please choose those wisely, limit those as much as possible. Do not host a huge party at your house if you do not need to. We really need to keep this framework of limiting outside contact outside of our household as much as possible. And then in those situations, social distancing, wearing masks, it is showing to help. The health department does feel like schools are a place where there isn't much spread because it is the one place where there's this tight policy, tight procedures that are being followed. And that is really helping limit the spread. Finally, cough drops. So We are not allowing students to bring cough drops to school this year. The exception will be if your child has a cough, gets the COVID test, it comes back negative, and then your child's physician feels like cough drops are going to help your child because they have the common cold or they have that dry, itchy cough. So only students that have a negative COVID test are allowed to have cough drops in the school building. That's an important piece to note. We do need a note from a doctor or a PA or a nurse at your child's clinic that does state that your child is needing cough drops during that time frame. If you have any questions at all on these, you know where to find us. Don't hesitate to ask.